Get it in. Drink more water. Jim's in class. John had a tooth extraction.
Oh, John did?
I hate that. Nope, but I'm going to.
We're going to go ahead and call our work session to order. And I would ask, please, if you have cell phones, to please mute them or turn them off at this time. We would stand and have pledge of allegiance by Councilmember Blanton and prayer by Councilmember Reed.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you would like to pray with us, would you please remain standing? Dear God, we gather today as City Council of Madison, seeking guidance and wisdom as we serve our community. We pray for discernment, compassion, and unity as we make decisions for the betterment of our city. Grant us the courage to lead with integrity, to listen to the needs of our citizens, and to work together for the common good. May our efforts promote prosperity, safety, and harmony among our residents. Bless our community. Lord, and guide us as we strive to make Madison a wonderful place to live, work, and play. Amen.
Amen. Our minutes for review. I don't know if did you all get a chance to read the last minutes that our clerk said? If not, we could put those on our regular meeting on the 9th. But if you received the minutes of the 12th, the 30th, and February the 9th, along with January the 9th work session, did y'all receive those minutes?
We did, yeah.
We did.
Everybody ready? So we can go ahead and put all those, January the 9th, January the 12th, January the 30th, and February the 9th, our last council meeting. Put those on our consent agenda, consent agenda
Yeah.
for our meeting. Okay.
You know, city clerk has been working overtime without a meeting.
Thank you so much for that. I don't think our city manager's going to be here this afternoon. He was going to give some topics, but he's not going to be with us this evening. So at this time, we will turn it over to you, Molly, for Joint Comprehensive Planning Report.
All right, thank you so much for having me here. Briefly, I'm going to give this report. Councilmember
Okay.
Malinowski is at training today.
Right.
So you all are aware of the fact that you had your required public hearing on Monday, February 9th. Our community advisory group has been established. We are waiting to hear from one more resident to get their confirmation, but then we will have that group of 22 individuals. They're residents, business owners, volunteer board officials, and they are excited to get started. So we're looking forward to that. Their first meeting will be in March.
Okay.
The Rooted in Morgan website is live today. That is going to be linked to from the madisonga.com/2047 plan that I referenced at our last meeting. So that's sort of the landing page on our website, but it will link to this Rooted in Morgan website, which is where TSW will be managing updates for engagement events, documents for review, surveys, anything and everything to do with the plan will be available there. We'll be putting that on social media accounts today to get everyone aware of that, and then we'll continue to post that and share that with the public throughout this process. So, all right, that's it for that item. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, we're glad you started.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
got a good committee, people working with you, so that's
Yes.
good as well.
Yes, and thank you, Councilmember Joyce, for your suggestions and recommendations, and we're able to make some shifts and changes to that, so. All
Thank
right.
you so much. So you can remain where you are.
Yes.
Let's start with zoning procedures.
All right, and I'm going to ask, I don't know, Tony, if you want to stay at your desk there, if you want to come up here, but it was my understanding you were going to guide most of this discussion. I'm going to just give us some data. These are the number of variance applications we've had over the last 10 years. I apologize, that should say plus 100% at the top, not 200. But you can see we've had quite a bit of a shift in this last year, which I think you're feeling. We've had anywhere between 1 and 5 applications over the course of 9 years, and this past year it jumped to 10. I do have those number of approvals there and approval rate. You'll notice that kind of goes up and down just based on the types of requests that are made. But generally speaking, there are 4 types that appear over and over again. Principal structure setbacks is one of the primary ones that we see. These are listed in the order of the number of items we've received. A lot size and width request, which I would say the ordinance actually specifically prohibits lot size and width variances or reductions. And pool setbacks, which we addressed not too long ago, taking that from 20 feet to 10 feet. And then our accessory structure size and setbacks there. And again, we continue to have an issue with people wanting to primarily place them closer to the primary structure. These are the standards for review, the required findings for variance and approval, and I will hand that over to Tony to kick off the conversation.
Common difficulty of when a variance can be granted, because you have a lot of rules that are black, just straight line, red letter law, and the common thing for applicants to do is come in and say, well, we need an exception to that red letter law. And so I think the confusion, and I haven't been around for most of those, but just plain language of this statute has the word "and" in it at the bottom, meaning you need all of those to be satisfied to qualify. It's not a hard read, and so I think a burden that may have been put on your staff is they get applications that don't meet all those standards. And the normal thing for a staff person to do in that situation is say, I'm sorry, you don't qualify. And if you want that to be different, something needs to be done with the language. So I think ultimately that is the problem. You have another provision that basically says well, this may be a new provision. It's probably worded really well. I just marked it. It says no variance may be granted that would permit a use not permitted by right or as a special use in the district. And so, so an ambiguity, maybe even in some of the things that you've been granting, is that if it says if it doesn't say you can do this there, you're looking for something to vary that's not the prohibited use in the zoning classification. Otherwise, you have, and the problem is constitutionally. Everybody has the right to the same set of rules, and if there's a discretionary part to that rule that council can vary depending on who it is, that's a constitutional problem. So and it can void your entire ordinance. It can jeopardize because of that discretionary application. So certainly something that everybody needs to agree on. When do we want to hear those procedures, and what's the circumstances where we think it's justified to be a hardship that the person didn't create for themselves.
Tony, if I may, Mr. Mayor, could help me understand what you just said about it being constitutional, and also, what was that last bit? It was just in my head, and then I started speaking, and it went out. Can you give me an example of what doing something that steps outside the boundaries, I mean, something special for an individual. Isn't that what I heard you say? I'm so
Yeah,
sorry, I can't
yeah,
articulate
it's okay,
this
it's
right.
okay. They're just, no recreational vehicles in the front yard or the side yard has to be hidden from view. Except the backyard falls off and you can't really get a driveway back there. Can I put it in my front yard?
Mhm.
And so you got a rule that says you can't, you got a person who says I want to. And when you grant the variance, then your ordinance is discretionary with you and not really a law that applies to everybody the same way. It gives absolute discretion to elected officials to do what they choose to, and that's the unconstitutional part of it. Law has to be applied the same way to everybody. So.
I have a question, Mayor, if I can.
Sure.
Why have, I think Kerry mentioned this in the meeting, if that's the case, why have variances even available as a remedy or as an option for people?
There are circumstances where people get trapped, simply by, something they did not anticipate or a change in the rule that really catches them. And it's not something within their control, but it's some rationale of hardship outside of the norm that would make the rule, extremely harsh. And
Good.
Many years ago, we had a variance request for 5 lots, I believe, on Harris Street and East Avenue. They were historic conforming lots of record, so at the time of subdivision in the 50s or 60s, they conformed to the dimensional requirements of the ordinance on file at that time. They didn't subdivide or combine any of those. They sat in that way for another 50 years. Harris Street developed out, East Avenue developed out, and the front setbacks were established. We have a requirement for the mean building line along a block, or the average building line along the block, is what has to be used when you develop. So if you've got 10 lots and all 9 of them are developed, and you've got the last lot they want to develop, we go and we take the front setback for all 9 of those lots, we average that out, and we say you have to meet this setback. That's the setback required. It's not on the dimensional regs, it's that average or mean setback. When he came in to pull building permits, it was found that he actually had mean or average front yard setback that was behind his back property line. So this was his property, this was Harris Avenue, and this was the back of his property, and the average building line was here. So it precluded development fully, which our ordinance can't do. So that's what the variance process is for. He came in and asked for reduction of that so that it would make possible building of an average sized home along that lot on that property.
it's something that the rule imposes on a piece of property that makes it impossible to comply with. And so that's why the law doesn't make sense in the context of the application to that piece of property. And it's not they're not wanting an exception, it's sort of unintended consequences of rules that we create in advance that you just can't anticipate everything that's gonna come up. So that's a pretty restricted use of variance to only allow those. The more you vary from that, the more objective it becomes, the more applications you're going to get. Now, these first standards that are in your ordinance now, there are extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to the property because of size, shape, or topography. That's those first 3, hardship, unnecessary hardship is a common term inside a variance ordinance. And so, but y'all have been doing this long enough to know that everything's a hardship.
Right.
And you're gonna hear a bunch of variances if that's your standard. So the question for the council is to give instruction about, okay, how strictly do we, how much do y'all wanna hear? Which is gonna be a bunch, and when we make it discretionary and, almost completely like those first, or taking the and out, then you're putting yourself in a position of hearing a bunch of variances. And,
Just an observation, Mayor. We've made a lot to do with the one word "and" there, kind of implying that it's more than one. In my mind, equally important to the "and" is the S on the top line after findings. It's not findings singular, it's findings plural.
Right,
Kind of also implying it's more than one.
yes, sir.
But we've got a long history, which has been pointed out, of not requiring all 8.
Right.
But it certainly needs it needs more than one. Do you have any speculation, Molly, as to why in the last year we had such a big increase in the number of variance applications?
Yeah, I would say that you know there's a housing crisis in the world, in the country, in this state of Georgia. I think that we are seeing more and more people stay when they would have previously been able to move and go to homes or lots that would allow them to do the types of things they want to do. So I think we're seeing a lot of people say, well, if I can't move, then I'm going to invest in the property that I have, and maybe I want to build on that extra wing, or I want to build on that accessory structure. I want to put that pool in that we were going to get in at our next house. It's qualitative. That's my assumption. I haven't asked every single person, is the reason you're doing this because you can't move? But I think generally speaking, we are seeing fewer people moving right now, and we're seeing more people just investing in the property they have right now. And I think that's where we're starting to push up against some of the limits of setbacks, pervious, impervious. I've had a number of people, you've not had anyone request this yet, but I do plan review for the permits being issued, and I'm seeing a lot of people just skirting the line, where when we issue it, I make a point of emailing and saying, please know that no further improvements can be made onto this site unless you remove some amount of impervious surface at the same time, because they have met that ratio, that threshold. So I think that's what we're seeing.
And then one question for Tony. Some of the cities you've been familiar with, what do they do with these variances? Do they tend to have something similar to what we have, a number of conditions that need to be met, unanimous, majority? What do they do?
Almost all of them are worded similarly. Your item number 6, which talks about variance to allow a use not permitted, is not in, that is a bar, an absolute standard. That's where you get your discretionary and constitutional challenge is there, where you're just taking your ordinance and making it subjective to council's instruction if you don't bar that. So if there are things about this. Lawrenceville historically passed variances off to a separate board, and the zoning board of appeals it ended up getting restricted so that those could come to the mayor and council either at the request of the planning department or the applicant. There was an appeal procedure, so it sort of took the burden of analyzing variances off the city council. Snellville builds it into their application process for zoning changes. So almost all the variances get attached into the development of a piece of property when it's really being designed or subdivided. They approve a lot of variances, and it's a lot of review that ends up just getting combined into the original zoning process.
Like a plan development.
Yeah, which again is a planned unit development or whatever, where there aren't a lot of rules, and you sort of build your zoning class and attach it to the piece of property as you're coming through. they require a great deal of time for planning staff and mayor and council review, and end up being, instead of being as simple to a classification, you end up with a couple of page sheets of descriptions of what the development ultimately gets restricted to. But I would encourage, having a list of required standards, and in those required standards, things like hardship have definitions, so that so that the staff can look at it and say, I'm sorry, you don't qualify.
Kind of to rule out most of that subjectivity.
And you're at an 8 point now, which if we were strictly applying it, you would, you'd have to have all 8. And you can say, you can use terms like 4 of 7, just give yourself a hard line description of what you want to do. And probably the easiest thing is for us to just say what we want it to be like, give us some hint, and then let us build the language from your instruction of how you prefer variances to be handled.
Well, let me ask Molly, is the standards that we have now, or the, whatever, yeah, the standards, are there any of those that are sort of frivolous or that we shouldn't think about? I mean, and I'm thinking too, if we wanted to do, let's say, you always have to meet 5 out of 8 or whatever, then all of a sudden you have something like a variance is not number 6. I mean, do we want number 6? I mean, do we want that to not be met? Which I think, like, it's not even printed in that at all, but they're asking for a variance for that. So that's a concern. I mean, I feel like if we have the variances, they all need to apply. But anyway, what do you think, Molly? What are you seeing?
I would really defer to Tony. I think that this list is longer than some other municipalities, so I think we can tighten it up a bit if
Good.
you'd like.
All right.
And we can give you some options. But I would defer to Tony as to what legally needs to be in this ordinance.
I would move that one above, just like you have it that way. It says it now. I mean, this language that I've starred is in there, so it's above. It's not the standard for review of a variance. In order to step into the review, you can't be asking for that. It should be above the standard line where it says if you don't have a permitted use within. Yeah, move it up, take it out of the standard. You can't use that as one of your criteria. Just make it an obligation and then step into the other criteria.
I've always had problems with number 4, which seems to me number 4 is the definition of a variance, but I've been told that's kind of a slight misreading.
So it sounds to me the suggestion would be to go back to staff and ask staff, with your help, to tighten up our variance standards so that they are maybe not so onerous, possibly, or that they are so clear that when it comes to either planning and zoning or it comes to us, it's really clear that we can go, you didn't check off. I mean, all these boxes are checked. I mean, I'd like to see all the boxes checked, but I will take a suggestion based on what planning and Tony want to suggest, I guess.
Because making them a little bit looser, as you said, maybe requiring that they all be met, maybe that's a good approach. Right now, we have confusion over whether all of them need to be met. We just had a decision recently, not ours, but another body, that 3 of 8 were met and it was passed. We have probably done something similar ourselves. I'm sure we have, yeah. And if we had maybe less and maybe a little bit looser but we needed all of them, that might be a better approach.
And especially with the definitions that may cause subjectiveness to arise, so we can eliminate as much subjectiveness as possible, so we know exactly what we're talking about, like you said, with hardship, and if
yeah.
there's any other terms in there that could be subjective.
I agree.
Well, I think I'm in the minority on this point, but I've always felt like, and until now, and Tony, you and I, we all talked about it, and you're our attorney, and I follow your advice. But that has not been what has been told to me before. It could be some, or it could be most, or it could be all. We never got a firm answer like that.
No, we haven't.
And so, but anyway, for me, I'm not, except for the fact that our legal counsel says it shoots holes in your ordinance and it makes it, renders it, I guess, no good. I'm okay with offering relief to people to move a pool 3 feet closer, as long as, in my mind, they're each unique, but I think I'm different on that. If we're going to put it where all of them have to be met, that'll certainly make this body's decision-making process a lot fewer and a lot easier. But
I would say that is part of why I wanted to itemize the types of variances that you're receiving, because I think that if you do want to take a perhaps more strict stance on variances moving forward, I would encourage you, as a matter of planning, to be open to the possibility that some of your ordinances you might want to shift slightly in order to accommodate some of the things you want to see happen, whatever those things are, to prevent what you don't want to see happen. But if the variances were your relief valve and you were overusing it, perhaps, if you want to standardize that process a little bit more, I would suggest that we continue to look at where and what the variance applications are for, where those standards can be changed if you want them to be changed, to achieve some of the goals that you're hoping to achieve, some of the planning goals that you're hoping to achieve. So.
And that's kind of difficult, right? Because I don't mean that all pools ought to be 3 feet closer to the house, but I think some could be if the property owners adjoining don't mind and whatever. But and if not, then you're just opening it up. You just make the change and say all of them can be 7 feet instead of 10, right? But I don't know that gives you a better problem.
What Molly was talking about is, if you're hitting on the same thing in the variance area, let's look at changing the ordinance. Here's another thing that other jurisdictions do is they give staff administrative authority to do variances on setback lines and that thing, inside the ordinance too, so that you eliminate a lot of stuff coming to you when it's really a hardship that the planning staff can see. You give them some discretion in applying the right to vary those setbacks slightly, especially if you have a history of seeing what issues are coming up. And that's where you give them discretion. We really like having the landscaped area where you don't see the pool, but then we give them 5 feet in events of hardship. And then you get the variance, you get the human, and my lot slope and all, doesn't make it, give it to the administrative staff to apply that hardship area, and yet you guys don't even have to be involved in that process.
And there is always the opportunity, Rick, to do a text amendment and do a change that would apply to everybody in that district and not make it specific for one special person. That's another option people can do. They can come to us and we can make that change, and that, in some respects, that's a little more even-handed. I think there's a difference between a pool moving 5 feet in the hinterlands of your district as opposed to something that's much more visible and bigger, asking for broader variances. They're not really the same thing, yet they're both asking for a variance that we're supposed to vote on. It's hard, I mean, it's hard to apply the rules in that one little pool moving 3 feet to something much larger with bigger impacts for the public, and that's kind of where I have problems.
So what's the plan from here then? So what are we gonna do?
Sounds to me like you'd like Tony and myself to take a look at whether there are some of these required findings that are maybe superfluous and can be removed, or things that could be reworded. But it sounds like as a whole, perhaps, except for Councilmember Blanton, you would like to see them all be required, as opposed to only a portion thereof.
Well, once we get them, let's see them first. But let's see what they look like after they've been revised and perhaps made a little bit more kinder or less subjective, you know, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know if I wanna say all, but I would like to see what you put together, because I'm not sure about saying all of them have to be met. So, once we get it together and I read over it, you know.
Yeah,
then
I think that's a good step. Let's see what they are first and then make that, and then,
And we'll also add
Discuss
definitions as
them
well
both.
for
Okay.
anything that is perhaps confusing language.
Yeah.
super.
All right, great.
Yeah, definitely the definition for hardship, because what is hardship? For me, it's different from what you say hardship is. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, got two, speaking of zoning ordinance amendments, I've got two I'd like to float by you to kind of see.
Sorry, could I go back one quick? What would be the timing on that, on revising that? When would we get to see?
I would
kind of-
assume we'd have it at the next work session. I think that's easy enough
Okay,
to do.
good.
Excuse me. A little frog in my throat. Okay. Yes, we can have that at the next work session for your review. Speaking of zoning ordinance amendments, there were two that I was hoping to really just get your temperature on before we go down that road. If it's not of interest to you, we don't have to do it. If it is, then we bring that to you. I would ask Tony to kind of let me know what the, thank you, what the appropriate procedure is for legislative changes. Is it appropriate for, if this body did want us to draft these amendments, could they see those before it go through the official zoning process? I assumed it was, but I wanted to confirm that
Perfectly,
was.
you know, if
Okay.
you're changing your zoning ordinance
Mhm.
and mayor and council have an interest in the language, it helps everybody
Yeah, great.
to get those recommendations clear before it goes to planning
Great.
commission.
And you might not want to see them, you might feel like you can just move it through the zoning process, the typical zoning process where staff just submits it to the planning commission for review and recommendation, then it comes before you. Or you could see it at a work session ahead of that, so completely up to you. The two items I wanted to bring to you first were gas stations and convenience stores. As you know, several months ago, we changed those to be conditional in all zones. But we wanted to actually add some additional restrictions to those, if it is your will. There are some, first of all, we wanted to kind of look at dimensional requirements, specifically frontage along arterials, and some sort of requirement that they have that frontage along our arterials. Distancing requirements from other gas stations and convenience stores, from churches, schools, daycares. That's the same language we use for adult entertainment. And then from single-family detached dwellings, as well as our significant water sources. Add exclusions within the HPO district, as well as within floodplains. And then add, if it is Tony's, this is something I would want Tony's thoughts on, is internal location requirements for gambling machines. We're seeing a lot of gambling machines being placed in sort of secondary rooms. And if it is possible to actually force those to be placed into the main room, just to avoid anything we might not want happening back there. And so those are the sort of general things that we'd like to put into the ordinance. If it is something that you're interested in, the specific distancing we would come up with and bring that to you all for review. But is this of interest? Thoughts, questions?
Are there state limitations to gambling machines now, or is it?
There are not state, there's state support, that we can't limit them. That's why I'm kind of hedging. Yeah, that's why I want Tony to tell me what I can and can't do with gambling machines,
And
because
I
I
have to
know there's a
look,
lot. Yeah,
it's a sort of powerful lobby.
yeah.
And I think to a certain extent creates revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And so, two bad combinations for
We
state
can't preclude them, I
legislators.
know that much,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or merchandise, they're not supposed to be cash payouts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, that's been part of the rub.
where the GBI has
Hey,
people that go in
Yeah.
and check all that stuff.
So if I may, to clarify, we have gas stations and convenience stores as a conditional use already.
Correct.
And what we're looking at doing is adding to
Some
the
requirements,
requirements
yeah.
of, if we do grant a conditional use, these are standards or these are conditions. that
These
to
would
be
still
met.
have to be met, yes,
Okay.
yep,
Those are great.
okay.
Would it make sense to add one of my pet peeves, lighting on such aforementioned gas stations and convenience stores? They're
Yes.
really bright. I don't know what it is. They like to have
agree.
the
Yeah, we can look
neon
at that.
lights around the windows and these huge floodlights for surgery bays.
We have light performance standards for lighting. So some of that's a matter of code compliance and having someone who works nights who can go out and actually measure that at the property line and ensure that the wattage that has been provided for in the ordinance is not exceeded. You know, that we don't have that at the moment, but we can absolutely look if there's anything additional that we need to do for gas stations.
And the corridor, I know, has some
Policy-wise.
control, but there might be gas stations not technically in the corridor
Yeah.
overlay.
Yeah, most of them pretty much would be, but yes, we could still look at that.
And I'll say that that's something the corridor's looking at. I think we're going to go to only under canopy, pump canopy lighting, because what they're doing now is they're sticking it out to the sides and doing,
So they've got the dark sky
Right.
net, but they're
and
flooding
we keep,
everything else.
at this point, we just say that they have to be horizontal, so at least we're not casting as far as they can get. But also then the ones that are on the building, I think we're going to go to some sort of under canopy or under roof thing so that we don't get those super bright light things, because it bothers a lot of us.
Is it just me that finds those irritating, or do you
No,
guys?
Not at all, no.
Yeah.
My son hates them as well. We drive by, it's so bright.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
So Molly, you want to, or you're this is proposing at distances between other gas station and convenience
Yes.
stores, similar to bed and breakfast.
Correct, yeah, mhm.
And I'm not sure I can see some concerns with some of those. I'm just curious what the impetus would be of detached dwellings. Would that be a neighborhood?
Any single-family detached dwelling, so
Yeah.
it could be a one-off. And that was actually one, so some of these I pulled from our adult entertainment regs, and some I pulled actually from the City of Rome has just recently approved language to this. I kind of took a little bit of what they did and a little bit what we've already done for some other uses. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was one that also gave me pause as to whether that would have some unintended issues, and so that's something we would consider. We just kind of look and see if there's anything that, if it would preclude any gas stations along our corridor where we expect to see them. We obviously don't want to do that because we don't want to push them anywhere else, so
I
we
would
will
say
take a
we don't
look
have
at that.
very many places that,
Yeah, so we'll
depending on your-
definitely take a look at that.
on that list.
This would not preclude existing gas stations from continuing to operate in perpetuity and from a new gas station to purchase and renovate and operate a gas station at that site. It's really about establishing a use for a new gas station use anywhere.
With regard to with this as well, if I may, as we spoke about the lighting, I guess also whatever the required vegetation falls within that's corridor design sort of thing, and there's other
Mhm.
things that happen there.
Yeah.
right?
As long as they're in,
Correct,
we do have some commercial areas that aren't on entryways.
yeah.
So can I ask a quick question, and this is hardly related, I mean, this is related, but it's not really germane to this especially, but the gas station that just went up across from the on Eatonton Road, right before Ingalls,
Just past the fitness.
right by Crows and stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
That has no vegetation, no trees, no anything, it's just,
One, that's a redevelopment site.
okay,
So they were required to, and we will be checking at this time of the year, tree planting times, but they were required to plant. Before they took over the property, the asphalt went all the way to the sidewalk.
Mhm.
And they were required to take like a 5 or 6 foot strip out of green space and plant, I think, 3 trees, yeah.
okay, oh,
Um,
good.
As well as some trees along the rear, I believe.
Yeah.
We will be,
Those are coming.
no, those
No,
should
they're
be
there.
They are? Oh, I guess,
Yeah,
oh.
Charlie Brown trees.
I mean, it's one thing when you have a complete, like, what possibly could happen at the Rite Aid store, when you have a complete tear down, then they have to meet everything. But when you're redeveloping a site,
I just-
you kind of get what you can get.
Yeah, okay, and thank you for that, it was
Yeah.
just, I would forget to ask.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So is there interest in us taking a look at this? I've got lighting perhaps being added to this list, and then absolutely addressing the concern about single-family dwellings, and if that sort of precludes any locations, because we absolutely don't want to do that. That would be illegal, perhaps. But how would you like planning staff to handle this? Would you like us to bring you these to look at an upcoming work session? Would you like for us to draft these and take them through the zoning process and have you look at them after the planning commission has had a chance to vet those and see if they have any other thoughts? What do you think?
Just speaking for me, Molly, I'd like to see something in writing
Mhm.
before me at a work session.
Okay,
That way we can get maybe some better input for you.
okay,
I don't want you to do a bunch of work and just have us throw it away, but
yeah,
I'd prefer that
Okay.
myself.
great. All right. I will endeavor to have this at your next work session as well. Next up, signs, and so I'm gonna actually hand this over to Ken.
That's right. So we have a draft of a completely rewritten sign ordinance. The major impetus is the first bullet point there. Several years ago, there was a Supreme Court case where they determined the town was violating the First Amendment because they were specifically talking about the content of the signs and then where those signs could go, which is what we do. So if you say you can have a real estate sign here, you're violating Constitution because you're talking about the content of the sign. And if you say you can have political signs, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, but you can have political signs during this time of year, and here you're violating the First Amendment because you're specifically talking about what the content of those signs are. So part of this rewrite is that we've taken all those references out, and so each property has through the year a certain number of signs and size of signs that they can have that can say, I love hot dogs, or they could say, vote for Joe Public, or they can say anything as long as it's not profane. So that was the impetus, and while we had the hood up on it, we decided to do a little more work. So some of the things that have changed, up to this point, technically, banners were only allowed in C3 and C4, kind of out by the interstate. So there was no opportunity in other places, say if you had a church and you wanted to have a banner up for a certain amount of time, technically that was not, if you were downtown, you couldn't have a banner. So we've been kind of flexible on enforcing that, but it's always good to change the law instead of skirt the law. So the banners have changed, that there are opportunities in all zoning districts, and what those parameters are depends on which zoning district it is, but they're all very similar. There's always been a weird thing about window signs, that if the window sign was stuck to the outside of the window, it was a sign that we regulated, but if it was stuck to the inside of the window, it was interior and couldn't be regulated. And I always, Neither one of us like that, so we have changed that too. If it's part of the window, it's a sign.
That's what you see a lot in, gas stations and convenience stores, primarily a lot of internal signage going up and completely obstructing the very voids that we are hoping to achieve for architectural purposes.
Right.
So,
So it doesn't preclude things like, the open thing, because it's not actually adhered to the window itself. But I think that gives us a lot of clarity, because you see two places right next to each other, and the signs from the street look exactly the same. They had to get a permit, and they didn't because of how they stuck it onto the window. It made no sense. And then I've always found that the format of that part of the ordinance was hard to read, because it was in a graph, and you had to check a footnote for different things. And now it's written so that if you are in C3, there's a block of text that's about C3 that you can either go find, or staff can copy paste into an email versus, and there's a lot of repetition through it, because some of the things are the same in each district, but you don't have to go, where am I, what am I doing? I think it's going to be a lot easier to read.
yeah, that's going to sort of signal future amendments that come to you. We are going to endeavor to try and do that throughout the ordinance. It will make the ordinance slightly longer in the end, but we hope it will make it a little more user-friendly. That's one of the things we're hearing from people who are trying to access lots of different sections of the ordinance to know what they can build or what they can do. And we're hoping that we can place it in such a way that it makes it just a little bit easier for people to access that information. So,
For instance on that, so gas stations in C4 are allowed to have digital price change signs, but it wasn't in the C4. It was in a different section about, I don't know, lighted signs or something. Like scale, it's special signs for scales, gas, so if you didn't see it in where you were expecting it, hopefully this will be a lot easier to read. Yep.
Thank you.
so like Ken said, we have a first draft of that ready for you. City of Johns Creek specifically had updated their ordinances relatively recently, and so we felt that was a good model to use, using a lot of the same things that we already provided for. So we didn't adopt their ordinances in terms of sign height and location and things like that, but the structure and some of the nomenclature and things. And then we took our requirements, changed a few of what we felt like Ken already said, banners, interior versus exterior window signs, and made some modifications there. Is there anything that you would like for us to take a look at before we bring that draft to you all? Anything else that has been top of mind, of concern, a question you have that you want us to address in this before you see that first draft?
Well, we've got, if I could, Mayor, we've got political elections coming up very soon. And I'm curious whether Reed versus Town of Gilbert would prohibit some of the current ordinances we have regarding political signs, which is one per candidate per frontage.
We don't say that.
I think it does.
It does
It does
now,
not.
yes.
It does
This
now,
would
yeah.
not.
Yeah.
The new ordinance says, in this zoning district, this piece of property can have up to 5 signs with an aggregate of so many square feet, and we don't care what it says. So if you want to advertise, if you want to have
So you can repeat the same candidate,
yeah,
which
exactly.
is the change.
That's right. That's exactly right. Or if you want to leave that up all year long, you can do it.
For the aforementioned reasons of the Reed versus Town
Right.
of Gilbert.
And then
Oh,
I look to our attorney to make sure that I'm saying that right. But
that's right.
The practical side of that case is billboards. So the attack comes, they want to put a billboard going into downtown, right in the historic district. And so the way they get that is they attack your sign ordinance and get it thrown out on First Amendment grounds. And then they have a right to put a billboard up. So that's where all the litigation has come from, is billboards. And that's why being very careful, and I recommend, once we get complete, to really get an expert in First Amendment to review it, because it is extremely difficult to accomplish that standard. But once you get there, you have some weird rules. They seem weird to me. A certain size sign, you can't regulate political speech by calling it political speech.
Right.
Yeah, that's what's wrong. So you get these definitions of size and residential signage, and so you're really you're regulating size in a use area, but not the content of the sign itself. And so it's a hard task. And so we do the best we can at this level, and it might be that at some point along the way, before we get too public about we do a moratorium on billboards while you finish your regulations.
Well, and we actually don't use the word billboard at all. We just have size regulations. So we say, if you want a billboard that's 48 square feet, have at it. And they're like, that's not a billboard. And we're like, that's the size you can have.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So-
Those are good, but at some point, we might want to
Make sure that
put a
we're-
moratorium on commercial advertising signage while we go through the review process, once it becomes a public part of the
Okay
process.
with me. That means less work for me. But probably all built up a month later to get all the ones that wanted to do it during that time.
I hope you have a good supply of tape measures, Ken.
So I think with that one, we're prepared to go ahead and forward that to you, Tony, for review. And then perhaps that moratorium needs to be placed on the next regular meeting.
Was that case from last year?
No, it's like 5 or 6 years old.
Really?
All right. And one more thing, I'm sorry, y'all. Are we handing these out, Marlon? Sure. All right. This should be quick. These are our construction and design standard details. We've had our dumpster enclosure updated. Sean and Ken really led that, Sean being our Public Works Director, and Ken managing the corridor design board where most of these dumpster enclosures are located. But these, and I failed to include this as an attachment, so I apologize for that, but this will be included as an attachment to your regular meeting. I just wanted you to be able to see it. Oh, it's on there? The attachment is?
Oh, the attachment.
Oh, no. So, but that will be for the public to be able to review the change that you're making, which is simply removing the current dumpster screen L07 standard and replacing that with the dumpster enclosure standard. You'll see 2 specifications sheets, and then you'll see a performance specification, which actually just talks a little bit more about the types of cladding and screening, the gate construction, durability, slab and drainage, all of that sort of thing. So these were developed by Georgia Civil, again, with direction from Sean Wood and Ken Coker, and I'm just bringing this to you, and we'll bring this to you at your next regular meeting for adoption to update this.
Could I ask, Mayor, what the impetus for this change was?
I believe that we're having a lot of dumpster enclosures that don't suit our machines.
Too narrow?
They're too narrow, so we're hitting them, they're getting knocked around, so these widen them slightly. And this also has some more architectural standards that will be for anyone, not just in the corridor or in the preservation overlay, which we didn't have previously either. And there's a sort of a tier, there's a range of what they can choose from. But primarily just damage from our new machines, trying to go and get those.
And those that don't meet the standards now, and we change standards, they must up,
No,
or they're grandfathered
They're
in.
grandfathered until they go to replace it. and then
I understand, perfect, yep.
They're replacing it within 12 months. So we have that legal non-conforming clause that I think would still apply to this, which is if you're taking it down just to replace it right away, you would meet the standard you met at that time. But if it's destroyed and 2 years later someone comes back and wants to build an enclosure, they need the first year. We have a 12-month grandfathering on the clause.
And part of it was, there was a disconnect between these and what Aaron, because Aaron's the one that takes a look at these to make sure that his trucks can service them. And so they would, if they looked at this, they would come up with their plan and go through plan review, and they go, no, this needs to be wider. but it doesn't say that there. The other thing is, I mean, these are from like 85 or something? 98? So there have been new materials that come along. So this actually says to use wood for the gates. We've taken wood completely out because it rots and is much more susceptible. And we're requiring metal framing for the gates because people would build it out of wood and it would start to sag and sag. And so it's for longevity and serviceability.
Yeah, and we'll continue to update these piecemeal as we have the funds to do so, and then hopefully kind of have a clean version of this, 2020 version.
Yeah, and this was a nice cooperation between Corridor and Public Works because we realized that we weren't going to use our guideline budget last year, and so we said, why don't we cooperate with Public Works and get that updated so that it's smart for everybody.
Yeah.
Are
Good.
city-owned dumpsters exempt from these standards? I believe we have a couple we run ourselves.
Yes, we're exempt from all of them. We try not to do that,
Yeah.
but yeah.
How many dumpsters do we have? Dumpster.
Well, I can think of one behind the north side of Jefferson, those stores.
Ah.
There's at least one city-owned one there that has no enclosure.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not saying we should have one, but we do try and be consistent most of the time.
Thanks, Molly, for that update. Appreciate that so much.
Thank you.
Well, let's go ahead our work session. If we could get a motion and a second to go into executive session to this. We don't have public comments at work sessions. We don't.
I forgot where I was.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. I move that we go into executive.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, none, vote unanimously. Thank you so much. Let's go into executive session.
Can the clerk make sure that that comment by Councilmember Wagenhauser is in the public record? That she doesn't know where she is?
Yeah, you need to worry about me.
Anybody need a quick break before we go into executive session?